Hello, I'm Richard Austin. I'm here today to talk about transport and logistics. A little bit outside of my comfort zone. Normally, I'm brought in as if I'm an expert in anything, it's retail, hospitality, and definitely not transport and logistics. So I'm here in learning mode today to find out a little bit more about that. But the good news is, I've got with me today Eric-Jan from Honeywell. He's Director of Sales for Strategic Accounts at Honeywell Productivity Solutions and Services. So we've rolled out one of the experts in the T&L sector to give me some real information there. So welcome, Eric. Nice to have you here with us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. No, you're welcome. And we've this is the first time we're meeting. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your role, what you do.
Yeah. So, Eric-Jan, or as most people call me, Eric.
Eric.
I've been with Honeywell for the past 7 years almost, based out of Amsterdam, but, most of the time on the road visiting customers.
If you're going to be on the road, I guess Amsterdam's the best place to be in terms of, you obviously...
Well, I'm traveling from Amsterdam, not to Amsterdam.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's a good hub. You clearly, as a T&L guy, you've clearly thought that through, right?
No.
just
happened to be there.
A happy accident.
Yeah, happy accident. So me and my team, we manage about 20 of the largest T&L companies.
Wow.
With a headquarter in Europe, and we have a global remit for those accounts.
Okay. So I guess those customers they're all pretty global customers, right?
They're the big familiar names in the T&L, like the DHL, Kuehne + Nagel, Schenker, GLS, the postal companies, and so on. We also support our U.S. colleagues on big U.S. accounts like FedEx and UPS. And our main goal is to ensure that we handle the end-user relationship, that we know what the business issues are and how Honeywell can address those.
Yeah.
And then as a consequence, we manage our local sellers to ensure we have consistency in what we deliver, the solutions we deliver, and how we support those customers.
Yeah, sounds like a nice, challenging job. Very, very global. I'm beginning to understand how you're racking up the air miles for sure.
Yeah. I have a few of them.
Yeah, good for you. Good. So, I'm keen to dive straight into this and start learning more about transport and logistics. And my first question really is kind of a general one. What trends are having a major impact on driving change in the T&L sector at the moment? What are the sort of the mega trends that you've picked up on?
So I think that to start off, I think the whole T&L, the whole logistics industry, has gone through an incredible changing times over the past 3-4 years now. With COVID,
like many industries, I guess.
Like many industries, but I think if you look at the impact Corona has had on the whole industry, it has a very significant impact.
Yeah.
And we are now just getting back to a normal where capacity is at the pre-COVID levels. I mean, during COVID, there were no airplanes, there were no ships. So it was very challenging. We've then saw, with the shortages of components, but also shortages of ships and planes.
Remember the component shortages?
We all suffered from that. But then you saw an incredible rate increase. And now we're seeing them come back down. And now it's time to focus on how can we improve the industry.
Yeah. So the freight charges internationally are definitely coming down again. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yes. If you and especially on ocean freight, if you knew that pre-COVID for a container, it will cost you $2,000-$3,000 to ship it from China to Europe. Middle of last year, it was at almost $30,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And now it's coming back down again. It's also reflected if you analyze some of the report earnings, the earnings reports from some of our customers. DHL Global Forwarding, they increased 40%, and this year they're going down 40%.
Just because of the cost?
Just the cost, because the volumes are pretty much stable.
Yeah.
So now everybody is focused again on what we were doing pre-COVID, and really focusing on three main parts. One is the productivity. How do you do more with less?
Yeah.
It's not just a logistics issue. I think that's everywhere. The second one, and that's becoming more and more prevalent every day we go, sustainability. Everybody wants to be greener.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to make sure that whatever we transport or store, we do it in a carbon neutral way. And the last part, of course, is the profitability.
Yeah.
As you see, there's a lot of competition out there. Some are doing good, some are not doing so good. So how do you ensure that their business model is actually working for the employees, the customers, and the shareholders?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess productivity is very much tied into the profitability side of things, isn't it? So, yeah, I mean, talk to me a little bit more about productivity. How exactly do you do, as a transport logistics business, how do you do more with less?
Yeah, so I think, again, you can see three underlying trends there. One of them, big buzzword, of course, automation.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about it. Everybody's doing it. But you see lots of differences. The second one, and it's really tied into automation, is, of course, same as in your retail industry, a shortage of people.
Yeah, that's a huge trend in retail, whether it's retail and hospitality, whether it's waiting staff or checkout staff, just floor staff in those. Yeah, so that's big in warehousing, I guess.
Of course, and in drivers,
sure.
and in truck drivers, especially if you, and it's actually pretty interesting what we find out for the truck drivers is there are so many truck drivers now retiring, and not very many young people are entering the business.
Yeah. It's a friend of mine, actually. He runs his own haulage business, and he's a small local business, but he just can't find new drivers anywhere.
And
certainly not good ones.
Do you know what the reason is why there are not many? Why we used to have so many more truck drivers compared to now?
I'm going to guess that young people would rather be Instagram influencers than truck drivers. Is that is that part of it?
No.
Okay.
No. What
I apologize to young people in that case.
I mean, because you can be a great influencer driving on a big truck.
I guess so. Yeah.
But what we've seen is that back when we were young, which was still in the previous millennium, most of the countries in Europe had a military service for all the young people. And although there wasn't a lot going on, so people started to do lots of stuff. And one of the things most people do when they went into their short period in the army was get their driver's license.
Right, yeah.
Including for trucks.
Huh.
So a lot of people were already educated by the military service.
Yeah.
So by the time that ended...
So that they don't have to spend extra money on education to become qualified as truck drivers.
Exactly.
There's a whole, ready-made fleet of employees.
Exactly.
Good to go. Yeah, okay.
And since that was stopped by most countries in mid-90s, 2000, there's a shortage.
For the people that trained, military service truck drivers in the 80s and 70s, 80s, 90s,
they're now retiring.
Yeah, sure.
And that's why we all see so many. And you see them going further and further away. One of them, we started with, the Polish drivers, the Hungarian drivers. Then you saw Russian and Ukrainian drivers. And now we're even further away in Kazakhstan or, very, very far away. We're coming to Europe to drive the trucks. That's just one example.
Yeah.
The other example is in warehouses. It is very rare to find more than 6, 7, 8 languages being spoken. So shortage and increased difficulty with training them and communicating with them. So that's the second big, drive for productivity.
Yes.
And the last one is really about us, about our customer expectations.
Yeah.
Again, driven by COVID as well, when we started ordering everything online. You still see that.
Yeah, that's definitely continued post-COVID, hasn't it? Yeah.
We all found out that it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And convenient. So let's continue that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely find that with supermarket deliveries. We would still go into the supermarket. Actually, during COVID, we'd still go in occasionally as much as we were allowed because it's a time out of the house. But I think it's
but it also gives away your age.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, no, because I recognize myself in it, and I see that we like to do things the way we used to do it, and I do as well. I like to go into the grocery store and pick up the fruit and hold it and don't buy it off the screen.
Yes, yeah. But the convenience of online delivery, whether it's food or whatever, I'm probably okay with food deliveries, but it's clothing and that kind of thing. I still want to try it on before I buy it. So
has a big impact.
I guess there's a range of different customer expectations, and the requirement is for the industry to be able to fulfill for all of those different types of consumers.
Yeah, but we, again, the older generation, we go shopping. And
thanks again for including me in that.
We've had this conversation last night, and yes, there are some differences in generations, but we like to go, for your clothing.
Yeah.
You go shopping, you try something on, and then you pick the right one and take it home. And, you now see days that a lot of people order 3 of something in 3 different sizes, keep one and send 2 back.
Yeah.
But what is impacting the logistics industry is that before, if you got an email or a message saying, hey, we're going to be there on Friday sometime between 10 and 5, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll be at home.
Yeah, better take the day off work, yeah.
Now that we're working at home, but we want to have a definite time of delivery and maybe a 15, 30-minute window, but it has to be there.
Yeah.
And we tend to not be happy when they don't show up late.
Yeah.
That is driving a need to have much more data, much more visibility of data, and be much more productive to plan the routes to ensure that everybody gets there on time.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so 3 main trends then: the automation, the shortage of labour, and customer expectations being the drivers for the productivity side of what's changing in transport logistics. I mean, automation, that's a huge one. What do you mean? What do we mean when we talk about automation in the T&L space? What does that mean?
So if you ask 10 people will give you a different answer.
Okay. I'm pleased I only invited one then, because we're limited for time.
And I think so automation is basically taking work out of people's hands and having that done by a mechanical solution.
Yeah. So robots, right?
It's part of it.
Yeah.
But if you look at, robots are really the small automation.
Sure.
They can only do a specific task. But we also see, completely fully automated warehouses or parcel hubs.
Yeah.
Where planes, trucks come in, they get unloaded, and then nobody touches it before it re-enters another truck or plane to go on its way.
Yeah.
The sortation systems, the conveyor system.
Sure.
And there's were, I must say, very heavy investments in that. But you also see now that because of the uncertainty in the market, what is the level we're going to go back to after COVID? How much of that is needed?
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that there are a limited number of fully automated warehouses, dark warehouses, or these hubs that you mentioned. Why are we not seeing that more? Why are we not seeing that in other warehouses? Why is that much more? Why is that not much more widespread?
Well, the big thing is costs, of course.
Sure.
And what we see is that the people or the companies that are building fully automated warehouses, they actually own their warehouse.
Yeah.
We also call it sometimes the Amazon effect, because Amazon really started that.
Yeah.
But if there's huge investments involved in getting a warehouse fully automated.
Yeah. I mean, how much is that roughly? It's
depending on the size, of course,
sure,
but it can be anywhere from 40 million to a few hundred million.
Yeah.
And in order for the business case to work, you need to spread it out over multiple years.
That's a long-term payoff.
That's a long-term investment. So you see people building the fully automated warehouses either own the warehouse or are willing to commit for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And if we look at Honeywell as an example, because of course I'm sitting here for the productivity solution and services, which is really the auto ID, the printers, the handhelds. But Honeywell, of course, is...
Guess you've got a lot of warehouses yourself, right?
Yes, we do. But also because Honeywell is, of course, a big conglomerate of about 40 different companies. And yes, we have the auto ID, which, of course, we work together a lot on, and with many of the people here listening.
It's a relatively small part of the overall Honeywell business,
indeed,
I guess. Yeah.
Indeed. We also have an automation company that is a fully operational system integrator that builds, automated warehouses with sortation systems, conveyors. It's Honeywell Integrated. So we're very active in that. But besides that, we also have, a very big aero division. We build everything for planes except the planes.
Yeah.
And if we look at our strategy of our warehouses, our procurement is not willing to sign up for 10-year contracts.
Yeah.
So we are saying, hey, we want you to run the warehouse for 1, 3, 5 years maximum.
Yeah.
And give us some cost savings.
So you're going out to like third-party warehouses then, rather than necessarily building your own in each case, yeah.
So it's because
or is it a mix? Have you got some of your own and some 3PLs?
It's a mix, but most of them are 3PL. It's also very much a geographical discussion. Where do we need what? How do we set it up? We've looked at also combining warehouses. We were looking at, a regional European warehouse. But then we found out that our product mix is so different that you cannot put as an example, an airplane engine
next to a barcode scanner.
Next to some of the chemicals we make that are highly toxic.
The requirements for each different product are very different. Massively different,
So you see a lot of different requirements really based on company that also limits the 3PLs to offer a standard service. Because if you automate a warehouse, if the customer leaves, you cannot replace it by a new customer.
So the 3PLs then, do they tend to specialize in one particular type of product, and or would they just do everything? But that's why they can't automate.
They are very much listening to the customer requirements and building the solutions for the customer.
So multiple customers within a single warehouse, right?
That's also one way to get that productivity up. Is multi-tenant. We all see them driving, flying, anywhere. We see a lot of these very big metal boxes alongside the road that are these warehouses. And getting more customers in there is very good for their business case, and thus for the end users who can have more productivity gains.
So it's a question really of make or buy, isn't it? Really?
Yes. And right now the buying a fully automated warehouse is extremely rare. One of our biggest customers, indicated, and he's with a 3PL, and he said, we see only about 5% of our customers actively engaging in getting a fully automated warehouse.
And that's really pretty low then,
but the business case just is not there at the moment. And so, it's always going to be a mix.
So with it being such a relatively small percentage, why then is automation so important? Does that mean that if people are not fully automating, are people partially automating? And if so, what does that look like?
Of course,
yeah,
that's the natural consequence. And it's really smaller automation. And then back to your original comments, that's robots. Yes, that's robots.
Yeah,
and robots you have many different robots, different functionalities. We see a lot of movement in that market with new players entering, and they, robots can basically do anything you want them to do.
Yeah.
So we see robotics entering warehouses.
But I mean, coming in retail and hospitality as well. Food delivery robots, bring food to the table. Termin waiters. I think we
indeed. But what you see with the small automation, it's really to assist people. You still need people to make it work.
So it's not they're not acting independently, and they're there as assistants, really, robotic assistants, rather than Skynet running the entire operation.
And again, it's to increase the productivity. We know customers who have a warehouse with quite a few robots who are going to a specific spot where then a picker picks out whatever is needed and puts it on the robot, and then the robot goes to the next spot where a different picker can put something on there. And a lot of traditional warehouses, you see people running around, with push carts, on forklifts, picking stuff. So they are doing the traveling. One of the easy ways to be more productive is have the people stay more in the same spot and have robots do the traveling for you.
So good for productivity, not so good for the step count of the warehouse workers, I guess.
But you're still on your feet all day. You're still doing the steps. But
5,000 rather than 50,000
exactly.
in a day. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Good. So, and another interesting thing about the landscape is the small robotics companies that are entering the market. Tell me a little bit more about that, Eric.
Yeah, I think we see that technology and real innovation always comes from new companies, from the startup companies.
Yes.
So we see a lot of new small or startups that have some kind of robotic solution. Some from Europe, a lot of them from China.
Yeah, sure.
And everybody is really looking for the unicorn. So at this moment, there is not a single company dominating any of the robotics areas that we've talked about, whether it's the Follow Me robot, whether it's HEVs, AMRs, or even, personal assistants like Put to Light or Pick to Light.
Yeah. So lots of individual companies, all with sort of small areas of expertise, would you say? Yeah.
Yeah, but also with small organizations and with small production capacities. So it's a real challenge to get the one that is ready to scale up.
Yeah.
It's really also waiting for companies like Honeywell and others to really put their power behind it, starting the acquisition cycle. But right now we have seen in the past few years that robotics companies are very high priced. And
in the value of the business itself.
The value of the business. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of venture capital money behind it.
Yeah.
Who all think they have the unicorn and they want their incredibly high returns on their money.
Yeah.
So we see that the acquisitions that are being made do not deliver the returns or the growth that is currently expected. So it's basically for acquisitions, for M&A of robotics company, it's really going to the casino and putting your money on red or black.
Yeah. So I guess that presents, for the T&L sector, the C-level people in T&L, that presents challenges for them because, I guess they don't want to bet red or black, do they? They want a safer bet to
absolutely
work with. Yeah,
I had one of the C-level people talk to one of our executives saying, look, I'm buying these robots, and I have about 1,500 of them, but I can see needing 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
But if I give that to that company, it's going to create so many problems because they're either going to spend the next 10 years manufacturing just for me, or they need to increase it, which is going to bring incredible risks. So I'd much rather have you, Honeywell, or some of our competitors start acquiring these companies and ensuring that they're going to be able to grow with me, taking away the risk for me.
Yeah, so a small startup business is not a good partner in terms of robotics or other solutions for a big, a big T&L company, right?
So the startups are very much needed to drive the innovation.
Sure, yeah.
But if you're talking about, my big customers, our big 3PL companies, they have 600, 1,000, 1,200 warehouses.
Wow, okay.
All over the world, where they're going to have this requirement.
How many robots would they need per warehouse?
It depends.
Yeah.
There's warehouses where there's 10 or 15 robots to every person.
Right.
So there could be hundreds. But again, the overall, if you look at the big 3PLs, they will have a requirement for thousands.
Sure. Yeah. And that's just not scalable for startups.
No.
Yeah. So you think the solution there is ultimately going to be acquisition of the startups, and sort of hopefully a unicorn or a herd of unicorns, a small herd of unicorns will emerge that can be sort of more sustainably integrated into a company like Honeywell, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it kind of leads me on to talking about, I know it's a buzzword these days, but AI, that surely there must be a huge role for AI to play in automation in the T&L sector, right?
Yeah, but it goes further than even the automation part, just in the whole T&L industry. Right now we're still pretty blind. We talked about the customer expectations, how we want better visibility on where our stuff is. That's on the last mile to the end user, but that's also true for any larger company. If you order from us and we have to ship to China to you, and you put it on a ship, it can take 12 days, it can take 21 days.
Yeah.
And it's depending on a lot of factors. There's a lot of data, but to be able to predict much better, you're going to need AI.
Yeah.
The same thing if you look in the warehouses, one of the biggest challenges they face there is making sure that people are in the right place at the right time. And right now, the data that is available is not good enough to make those predictions. And we're going to need AI, and you see AI entering the area to make better decisions.
I suppose it's a virtuous circle, isn't it? The more AI, the easier the automation becomes, and the less people are needed. So that we're back to automation, AI addressing the labour shortages that we touched on earlier on, and I think we more or less covered that, and automation certainly addresses it.
I think the conclusion is that in the end, robotics are just a piece of hardware. But you're gonna
we like hardware.
We love hardware.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's just hardware, and your added value comes. What can you do with the hardware?
Yeah.
And that's where AI is going to play a major part.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah. So, can help with shortage of labour. I mean, one of the things that we touched on earlier was consumer behaviour. That's often the driver for technology developments. We spoke a little bit about the expectations of the consumer in terms of they want this very tight, narrow delivery slot so that they can make sure they're there for the delivery, but then get on with their day afterwards as well, without having to wait in all day for deliveries. But what else are we seeing in terms of how customer expectations are driving change in the T&L market?
Well, what you see is that up to now, a lot of times we order something online and we expect it to be delivered to our house. What you are now seeing, because we want to have more flexibility, you also see that more and more possibilities are coming for us to go get our parcel in our neighborhood.
Yeah. It's pretty much getting offered, do you want it delivered to you, or would it be more convenient if we deliver it to this location that you pass on your way home from work? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and you can pick your delivery location. And we see in the Netherlands, for example, we have these neighborhood drop-off points where there's, whether there's a mom or a dad staying at home with the kids one day, and he can collect all the parcel for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But you also see a big development in pick-up and drop-off points. We call them PUDOs, where just, there's a fine network of small retail outlets that will collect the neighborhood parcels. The last thing, and that's also growing pretty rapidly, is around locker system. So you don't even have to go into a building anymore.
Yeah.
But it's just outside. You scan with your mobile phone, you scan a QR code, and your locker will open up with your parcel in it.
Yeah.
So
and that's for lots of different sort of things as well. I mean, there's obviously things for package collections, but also food lockers, chilled, frozen lockers, that kind of thing.
You can, creativity is great for innovation, so you can take it much further.
Yeah.
Right now it's outside. It is only, regular boxed parcels, but of course you could do it, with food, frozen food, cold food, maybe even hot food. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly if you think about the hospitality industry, one of the things there is that if you're a restaurant that's, especially a fine dining restaurant that's preparing food and also is offering delivery service as well, what you don't want is a load of people dressed up in tuxedos or in a nice restaurant, and then there's a guy comes in wearing with a big delivery bag, wearing a motorcycle helmet, but then you can't leave the food outside, especially in winter, because it'll get cold. So a locker that'll keep it warm with almost with heat lamps in it and that kind of thing to keep the food warm. So that's the kind of innovation that's coming through that we're seeing.
You might be onto something.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing that's coming through. I believe there's a solution for that already. I mean you think of a need for this, and often the startups that you were talking about before have actually already developed it. So
exactly.
That's and I guess the other challenge that logistics have is reverse logistics, because of what we were. Can we talk a little bit more about what we were saying before about these irresponsible people who, if they want one item of clothing, they'll order 3 or 4 different colours and different sizes to make sure that they get the one that fits. I mean, that must be a massive headache for T&L companies, right?
Well, it's not so much for T&L companies because they get paid anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But it's really for the retailers.
Yeah.
That for them it's not a sustainable model.
Yeah.
And clothing is, still pretty easy. But I was in a very big e-commerce warehouse up in Sweden that delivers a lot of electrical machines like chainsaws and snow plows and really complicated equipment. They have 4 people working full-time on returns because it doesn't work, they send it back. But if you have a big machine, what is not working? So they spend quite a long time trying to investigate what is wrong with it. So on the reverse logistics, there's still a lot of gains to be made in terms of automation, in terms of productivity, but it really starts with the retailers. Because they need to come up with their business model that works for them. Really about profitability, because now it's costing them tons of money. But you see in that market that there's still new players coming in who will say free delivery and returns.
And I suppose from the point of view of a retailer with physical stores, their concern is not only have they got the overhead of the stores, but they've also got this overhead of all of the returns coming back to them. If for every one item they deliver, there's 2 or 3 items that are coming back to them, their major concern is the cost of that return, and that's they've got to be exerting pressure on the transport companies to make sure that their delivery and returns costs are kept to an absolute minimum, right?
Of course, yeah. And you see in I think we can name probably 20-25 parcel delivery companies. Some big, some small, but there's huge competition, and that's driving the cost down.
Yeah, and I guess consumer expectations are having an impact on that as well, because nobody wants to pay for delivery. The cost of a driver and a truck and the fuel to power it and all that kind of thing. That's that's something that people just, I don't expect to pay that. I expect that to be free. Amazon Prime is the sure, it's not free. You pay a subscription, but the illusion is that it's free delivery.
Yeah, but it's and that's what everybody's saying. Of course, it's not free.
Yeah,
you pay for it anyway. Amazon Prime is a good example.
Yeah,
but, the other thing that is very much for retailers to keep in mind is also the service provided by these transportation companies. And in the YouTube, Instagram, TikTok world, how often do we see videos appearing of a delivery guy just throwing the box or, parking, hitting something on the road? And that also affects the whole customer branding.
Yeah.
Very importantly.
Yeah.
And it's on the internet within seconds.
Yeah. You don't even have to be in for that to happen. Your doorbell records it, and yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's another way that it's a headache, I guess, for the delivery companies. Yeah, they're supposed to be there representing a brand, possibly a high end brand that they're delivering for, and maybe another opportunity for automation there potentially. I guess with the
you see that because we talk about automation for a large part still in the buildings. Whether it's a hub or sortation or a warehouse.
There's outdoor delivery robots trialed in Milton Keynes and probably other places around Europe as well.
I know, and Honeywell is a key player in that. Is the whole drone deliveries? That's gonna at some point. The self-driving vehicles.
Yeah, that's.
We haven't seen that yet, but that's just starting to become a viable solution.
Yeah. So it's not just the changes that we've seen; it's the changes that are yet to come.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we touched on there is I mentioned cost of fuel a while ago. I mean, that's obviously got to be something that's in the back of people's minds. And you mentioned right at the beginning, one of the key factors is sustainability and the impact on the environment. I mean, how do you do all this for, do more with less, be more productive, and yet how remaining sustainable, remaining environmentally friendly, or becoming more environmentally friendly, within those pressures from those other areas. How are T&L companies responding to that particular challenge?
Yeah, I think that, not doing anything is no longer acceptable.
Sure, yeah.
So you see that
you can't just greenwash the whole thing and.
No, but we also know, hey, they're transportation companies. They have planes, they have boats, they have trucks, they have vans, and most of the time those are not very fuel efficient or very clean.
Plus, they've got warehouses that have to be, even dark warehouses have to be fairly brightly lit, I guess, don't they?
Well, they don't just that, but if you have a dark warehouse with a lot of robots, they also consume a lot of electricity.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the one thing, there's two things driving that. One is just us as consumer having the expectations that you need to have a plan on how you're going to become green. So you see all of the big transportation companies now have a roadmap to how are they becoming more sustainable. At the same time, and again talking from a Honeywell perspective, we also have our commitments because we also have to become greener.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we are doing is now we are requesting to the transportation companies 2 different quotes for a transportation. One is traditional, do whatever you want, and the other one is, what if we use an electric truck or van, or if you put it on an airplane but you use sustainable air fuel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we know there's a cost involved.
Yeah.
How much is that? Please offer it to us so we can make a conscious decision on becoming greener and also budgeting the increased cost that's going to bring.
Yeah.
And that's only going to increase. Now you see that airplanes, sustainable air fuel, not just the commercial airplanes, but also the freight. You see on the big ocean ships that they're all going to natural gas.
Yeah.
You see a great example, I think Maersk, who of course is one of the biggest shipping companies, and they have a lot of boats going up and down the ocean. They now put big nets behind their boat as part of the ocean cleanup.
Okay.
So they're collecting a lot of plastic that's floating around in the ocean because, hey, the boats are there anyway.
Yeah.
We see a lot of delivery trucks becoming electric.
Mm-hmm.
I was at an event in London earlier this year, and I was amazed how many startups there are who are doing deliveries on bikes.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I know in Amsterdam, we now have, because of course, not a very spacious city,
Mm-hmm.
one of the delivery companies is now actually using one of those canal boats.
Oh, really? Okay.
Electric canal boat to do the delivery.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of going on. This is a top priority at the sea level, and it's only going to increase to become more and more part of their business decision.
Yeah. I can certainly see that being driven forward by consumer expectations as well. And and I think with what you said about warehousing, the cost of light in a warehouse, all the technology that's got to be powered in the warehouse, whether that's robotics or other stuff. And I know, for example, a small example, the BlueStar warehouse, the roof of that is covered with solar panels, and they've got dynamic lighting in there and that kind of thing. So because these are often big spaces that you don't need to light a 20,000 square foot or bigger warehouse with all the time. You just need to light the parts of it where people are working at that time. So I think there's a lot more. There's a huge amount to it, and it's a huge drain potentially on the environment. But good to know that this is becoming a.
Yeah, and as you say, on the warehouses, we're getting more and more solar panels, and right now they're being used just to provide the electricity to the warehouse. But just imagine what's going to happen if all of a sudden the trucks arriving at that warehouse are no longer running on diesel, but are electric.
Yeah.
And they need to charge at your
warehouse.
Well,
they've got to stop there anyway for at least half an hour to load up with parcels, haven't they? So, yeah.
But that's also going to drive the demand on how much electricity the warehouse needs to generate.
Yeah.
So we're only at the beginning of that, and I think you'll see a lot of developments in that area in the coming 5 years.
Absolutely, yeah. And in terms of obviously profitability is another huge concern to these businesses with all the pressure that they're under to innovate, automate, become more sustainable. How is that drive for profitability impacting businesses in the T&L sector?
Well, I think you see a split between companies who are performing well and companies who are lagging behind. And what I've noticed is that the companies struggling the most are the traditional postal companies.
Right.
Your UK, the Royal Mail is in the news, I think, every week. We know La Poste in France, Deutsche Post in Germany. They are not performing nearly as well as, a DHL, a GLS, a DPD.
Why is that?
A very good question. But I think you see this with a lot of industries that are changing. Retail, perfect example. They've been too slow to adapt to the new world. They've been slow in their own innovation, in their own investments. Plus, they have this huge letter delivery system that is holding them back. And it's interesting to see. And for me, it will be, very interesting to see how this will evolve, because, as we know, that is still part of our European protectionism. We should see a much bigger companies merging, but everybody's still saying, no, our postal service is still so important to us, that needs to stay independent and not be owned by anybody else.
Yeah. I think, there's obviously different reasons for that in different countries. But if you think about how the Royal Mail was founded in the early 19th century, it was the penny stamps and the keeping the costs low to make postage affordable for everybody, and that drove mass communication as part of the industrial revolution in the 19th century. And if you think about, I can't even remember the last time I sent a letter. The letters that I receive these days, I can still remember a time when I would write letters to people, but
just write in general.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I guess very, very few people do that these days. If I get a letter, it's not normally, it's usually not good news. So, or it's going to cost me money or something, and but a lot more limited than it was before. But if you think about the amount of parcels that are coming, I've got especially during the pandemic, I've got 3 teenagers living at home, and deliveries coming in all the time. It's a really interesting how that's changed and will continue to change. And another interesting thing about that, I would say, is with all these changes, it's going to be opening up a lot of opportunities. How would you say Honeywell is uniquely placed to address these opportunities, Eric?
So I think we're very active on multiple aspects of the challenges we've described. Of course, Honeywell being such a conglomerate business, if people are reading up on how Honeywell is evolving, we've just announced a shift in how we align our business units, and we've now created, for example, a true business unit that is only going to focus on sustainability.
Okay.
So that's just for sustainability. If we stay closer to home and really looking at the technology that Honeywell productivity solutions and services have, we have the full suite of not just the hardware, but also the software and underlying technologies to really help the customer innovate, to address the trends we discussed of automation, of productivity increases, and of helping people be better at their job.
Yeah.
And so I think we are uniquely positioned. We're a very, very healthy company, so a very safe bet going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And specifically, how can resellers, how can our partners benefit from Honeywell's expertise in these areas?
So I think what we've built, my team, what we've built over the last year is really a global model, where we have excellent end user relationship. We are driving the innovation, and we're making it easy for them to do business with us.
But I guess there's a local element to that as well, right? Yeah,
absolutely, because we are still a partner-driven organization. 95% of what we do is through partners. Even with the big global companies, we still do it through the channel, and a lot of times many partners are involved. And what I always tell our channel, it's very much an invitation. Come talk to us, tell us what you need, and we're happy to support you.
Yeah, and BlueStar's obviously, inherently involved in that as well.
Yeah, but BlueStar is uniquely positioned with the global delivery model.
Yeah.
So it's great that we can build an ecosystem to fulfill the needs of all of our customers. And I think the difference is that we are really committed to the partnership.
Yeah.
And to the partnership with BlueStar and to the partnership with the resellers.
Yeah, well, we clearly are as well, sitting right in the middle of that. So that's and I think it's an interesting factor that you've got a lot of big global end users that obviously need a global strategy, but also alongside that need local resellers and regional distributors to make sure that we can fulfill the Honeywell solutions across those areas. So
as all of the sellers know, people buy from people, and especially not especially, but in these warehouses, in these hubs, people like to still speak their local language, like to be understood what the culture is, how they are supported, and we cannot do that on our own. We need a very strong ecosystem. We need very strong partners who are able to translate the local needs together with the Honeywell people into viable solutions.
Yeah, I mean that to me, Eric, that sounds like an invitation to resellers to get in contact with us, with Honeywell through BlueStar, and let's start some conversations about that. Talking of conversations, I think this has been a great one. I feel like I've learned a lot about an industry that I didn't know as much about as I didn't even know what there was to learn about it before. I mean, I was thinking surely it's just lorries, right? It's just trucks and warehouses, but there's clearly a lot more to it. So really appreciate your time today for coming here and giving us your invaluable perspective on this. And great to get to know you better. And thank you very much.
Again, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.